Hey, what's up, everybody? Coach Kyle here. And when a runner starts to dive more into how training actually works and methods of actually improving how well they run, inevitably they come across training zones. This can be helpful for appropriately managing how hard you run, making sure you're running easy enough, and giving you some guidance generally in regards or contrary to just going out and running. You have some guidance on how you should run. But what happens if you're understandably a little overloaded with information when it comes to heart rate zones, pace zones, perceived exertion zones? I know it can be confusing, even more so when you realize that not everyone uses the same terms, definitions, and the exact zones. But here I've laid out a few various training zones and how you can go about picking the ones that work best for you. So, why do you want training zones? One of the biggest errors I see a runner make is to do too much moderately hard running. And contrary to what many believe, especially non-runners, running should almost always be done at a relatively easy effort, an effort that you could speak Shakespeare in its native Klingon fairly easily while running without being out of breath. On the flip side, training zones can be nice guidelines to make sure you're not doing your harder workouts too hard. No need to destroy a workout of mile repeats. Go hard to be sure, but there's little reason to run them at best effort all the time. A nice guideline is if you end a mile repeat workout, for example, and you feel like you could have done one or two more repeats at that same speed without going full best effort, you probably ran it appropriately. Or if you were able to finish a tempo run and I could have done one or two more miles and have been fine. That was good. No need to go best effort all the time. The ultimate goal here is making sure you're running these various workouts at the appropriate levels. True easy runs so you can get the runs and the volume in without sacrificing recovery. Hard workouts so you can get good at getting that good training load in, but not overdoing it. Avoid continually accumulating fatigue week after week, run after run. This increases your injury risk, increases your risk of burnout. So let's break down how I like to use various training zones with my clients. Now, training zones for easy runs. With my clients, I primarily use two or three different methods of making sure they're not running their easy runs too hard. It's important to keep these truly easy so you can still have good run consistency and frequency and volume, but not accumulate fatigue or not build up this fatigue over time. You want to be able to run frequently, consistently at a high volume, but not get more tired every day. The Maffetone method is a nice way to make sure you're keeping your easy runs easy. You can certainly read more about it as entire books have been written on the subject. Nope, I think I got rid of it. I gave it away. But the short version is to take 180 minus your age, and whatever number you land on is your max aerobic function, aka MAF. It's a nice max heart rate to stay under for your easy general running, which should be about 75% of your total weekly, monthly volume. So Simon says that he's in his second week of heart rate training. All his runs except one a week are in zone 2. Zone 2 is just it's the easy run zone, basically. And he says he loves it. He says, I'm seeing what I expect to see. Pace getting slower over the miles, but keeping the heart rate low, going to stick with it till Christmas and see what happens. Definitely getting fitter if nothing else. And yeah, that's a fantastic way to go about this. The heart rate training, the zone 2. Zone 2 is what people should do most of their running in if you have appropriately set up your heart rate zones. And Nadia said that she tried the Maffetone method, but practically had to walk. And this is a client of mine, actually. And with people who are a little older, you're taking 180 minus 50. I can barely run at that heart rate. So in cases like that with older athletes, and I think even Dr. Maffetone says you can be a little more generous with the number you subtract. But in cases like that, I would rather just have that client not walk, and I have Nadia run by perceived exertion. I give her a rough estimate of, hey, don't run faster than this during your easy runs. But we try to mostly use perceived exertion with easy runs. And like Simon says, like Simon says, typically you will slow down a lot when you start running appropriate easy runs, because you were maybe running them a little too moderate in the past. And as my experience shows with the Maffetone method, you will generally get faster at that same heart rate. And I sped up by, I think, 50 during the MOF test, where you run, 3 miles at a max heart rate, at the MOF heart rate, on a repeatable scenario. And I think I cut, this was back in college, I think I cut 56 seconds off my mile pace. So I went from like an 8-minute mile to a 7-minute mile or something at that same 160 heart rate. So yeah, I had to slow down a lot at first, but over months I got faster at the same exact heart rate. And that's proof. The proof is right there that, if you've been running a little too hard for your easy runs, you'll probably benefit from slowing down. The second method is perceived exertion, and I'm a big fan of this. It's simply being aware of how easy or hard a run feels in the very moment. And I always share a graph with the RPE written out, the different numbered levels explained, and you can see that right here. And the easy run should be comfortable. You should generally be able to have a normal conversation during these easy runs. Alex here says that he always monitors his heart rate, but tends to prefer perceived exertion, especially as sometimes my heart rate will be higher than I would have expected compared to perceived exertion. He says, I find it really important not to get bogged down with the pace. It's faster than I expect, then great. But if it's on the slow side, he doesn't care. And that's very true. Typically, I prefer, like he said, perceived exertion with myself and my clients. But the heart rate is a nice little monitor to see. It's a little extra bit of feedback, And sometimes I'll have clients focus a little more on the heart rate if I suspect their easy exertion isn't truly easy. And this can happen from years of running moderately hard and thinking that easy is not easy, or thinking not easy is easy. It might take a little bit of retraining, but it's almost always worth it. You should end the run feeling totally fine. You should not slow down over the duration of a 30 or a 60-minute easy run. You should actually typically run a little faster, or just feel a little better for the second half of an easy run. And the third method of keeping your easy runs where they should be is nasal breathing. This is a tactic I picked up when I unexpectedly signed up. I lost a bet, signed up for an ultra marathon 2 years ago maybe, and I needed to get my long runs and my volume up. So I started practicing only breathing through my nose on these runs as a means to force myself to slow down. The practice was a huge struggle at first. Now I do it habitually if I'm not running up a hill, and often when I am, I still run with my mouth closed, and I can run at marathon pace with my mouth closed, and it's fine. And I've had clients start nasal breathing as a means to help them slow down. And I've had a lot of positive comments and experiences with that, because they've realized the importance of slow running, easy running, and how well you feel during and after these runs. So you can read more about nasal breathing. Look up the Oxygen Advantage book or YouTube channel. And for workouts, when it comes to training zones for not easy runs or easy long runs, I typically change it up a bit. First off, I consider a workout to be any run that's not an easy run of less than 60 or maybe 90 minutes. Anything longer than that, or with bouts of high intensity running, is something I would refer to as a workout. Now, examples of workouts might be an easy 2-mile warm-up, and then 2 miles alternating, moderate to hard 1 minute, and an easy 2-minute jog. And then an easy couple mile cool down. It's a fartlek. It's a speed play session. You just do strides in the middle of a run. Another option would be easy 15 and a moderate to hard 5. Or another option would be a warm up and a cool down with 5 1K repeats in the middle there. And how I like to personally and as a coach prescribe the zones for these workouts can depend on a couple factors. If we're 15, 20 weeks out from a goal race and we're coming off a period of rest, you're simply not going to be as fast as you would preferably like to be versus the 1 to 2 months out from the race. So during these times, our workouts will be shorter and quicker and not as race specific versus doing 3 to 10 miles at marathon pace, or doing mile repeats at half marathon pace, or 1K repeats at 10K pace. I like to stick with perceived exertion for short early season workouts, 30 to 60, 90-second surges or hill repeats. Our speed is down, but most importantly, the speed doesn't really matter at this time. We're simply using these workouts as a means to prepare for more important training to come. And when the time does come to do these longer workouts, such as 1K or 1 mile repeats, or 2 to 3 mile repeats, or 3 to 10 mile tempo runs, it's nice to use goal paces. It's nice to have goal paces in mind for these higher effort exertions. I like having my clients do a short race, 5K, 10K, or a 1 to 3 mile time trial every 4 to 6 weeks or so to get a fitness benchmark, but also to give us an idea of what you should be running these workouts at. For example, if you can run a 10K race at a speed of 7 minutes per mile, I would probably have you do 1K-ish, in that range, 1K workouts, the repeats at about 7-minute mile pace. Tim Schwartz, the Tin Man, calls this critical velocity. For a 43.5-minute 10K runner, they would do 1 mile repeats at about 7:20, aka half marathon pace, plus or minus 5 seconds per mile. And then they might do tempo runs at marathon pace, about 7:40 per mile. So this gives us a nice, clear definition, and my clients know what paces they should be running their 1K, 1 mile tempo run repeats at, because of these guidelines and these general pace suggestions. These methods are they're just different routes to the same destination, which is appropriately running your easy runs and your workouts at the appropriate exertion. If you prefer heart rate, if you prefer pace suggestions, perceived exertion, and typically these all line up. I can run at a moderate to hard effort for 1 mile repeats, and I'll run them at what I would have prescribed myself to run them at if I were to use pace ranges. So they're all the same. They all go to the same destination, which is, again, making sure we're running at the appropriate exertion levels. Jill here said that she knows nothing about this. She trains by pace and time only. And that's fine. If the pace that you're running at, again, is at the appropriate level for the run, that's fine. It's, like I said, they're all different routes to the same destination. And of course, there's more. We can dive into this more in depth, but that's out of the purview of our time together here today. As a coach, my job is often to filter out what my clients need and don't need. And it's likely that you don't need to know about VDOT or figuring out your max heart rate at this time. It's not always necessary to use those different types of equations. If you're ready to have a teammate to chat about things like this and to figure out what method is best for you to use when at the appropriate time, then I can help you along that path. All you need to do is take that first step by filling out the contact form at kylekranz.com and get a hold of me, and good things will happen. Let's chat, let's get started, and let's get rolling. So, as always, you keep running, I'll keep coaching.